Welcome, nature detectives. I'm Conrad Baker. I'm an outdoor educator with the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation at Letchworth State Park, and today I have a nature mystery for you. We unfortunately found a dead bird today. And although it's very sad, this kind of bird is very difficult to identify in the wild. Even experienced bird watchers sometimes struggle with identifying this bird. They find it very interesting, and as nature detectives, we can use a couple clues to figure out what kind of bird this is and how it helps us every single day. We'll use just one nature tool to do that, and that's our eyes. Because we'll be handling a dead bird today, I'm wearing gloves. I'll show you our bird right here. The first thing that might stick out to us about a bird like this is its size. This is a pretty big bird of prey. You notice its hooked beak and its hooked talons. I'm sure many of you will pick up on it's probably some kind of hawk. But a bird of this size is giving away one of its most important nature clues. There are a lot of different kinds of hawks that look kind of like this, but its size is a big clue. This is a pretty substantial one. It's longer, I would say, than a football. It's a pretty long bird. And the second nature clue that we can use to figure out who this is by looking at that tail that makes it so long. You see, the tail actually starts way up here on the bird and comes way out here. If this bird were flying, you would notice that big long tail trailing behind it, almost like a dove or like a huge long train coming out of the back of the bird. Really, really nice big long tail, and even when it's flying, it tends to be held in this nice straight long pattern instead of fanned out like some other kinds of hawks. Instead of fanned out when they fly, they tend to keep their tails together like this. The third nature clue that we can use to figure out what kind of bird this is by looking closely at the belly on the underside. I'm going to move the leg there. Closely at the belly. Do you notice how there are little brown spots all over the belly? And they start up under the chin and they come down towards the belly, and they're mostly concentrated up towards the chest. And they get less and less towards the bottom of the feet. And by the time we get to the feet, they're almost gone. It's almost completely cream colored. There are a couple little brown spots in there, but it's almost completely cream colored. Let's put all those nature clues together. We have a speckly chest and getting less and less speckly down towards the legs, down towards the belly. We have a very long, nice, skinny tail that's held in a nice, long, skinny shape while flying. And the whole bird is longer than a football. This must be a Cooper's hawk. A Cooper's hawk is a kind of a raptor, bird of prey, that looks very similar to a sharp-shinned hawk. They're very closely related. They look very similar. One of the biggest nature clues is the size of the bird. That's why that was the most important nature clue. A bird of this size will always be a Cooper's hawk. Sharp-shinned hawks are really much smaller. Their tails might only come out this far. They're really closer to the size of a robin than the size of a crow, like a Cooper's hawk. And Cooper's hawks also have this speckling on their chests. Sharp-shinned hawks have speckles going all the way down the belly, all the way down to the tail. It's completely speckled. And this bird is speckled more up towards the chest. And if we look even closer at this bird, now that we know that it's a Cooper's hawk, we can tell how old it was, approximately what phase of life it was in. If we look at its head, do you notice how the bird's head has pretty even coloring? There's some brown in there with some white spots thrown in there. But what it doesn't have is a nice dark brown or blackish cap, like a black-capped chickadee. The top of the head is not black on this Cooper's hawk. And that tells us that this bird was a young adult, not quite fully grown, what a real serious bird watcher might call a juvenile. Juvenile bird, not quite fully grown. So hopefully this bird had some nest mates that were also successful and grew up to be young adults and are well on their way. Cooper's hawks are completely carnivorous. They only eat meat, and the meat that they eat is very fast moving. They like to hunt fast moving birds on the wing. They will catch other birds as they're flying around. That's really important because Cooper's hawks aren't eating the mice and rats that a lot of other raptors eat. They mostly eat other birds that can be pests to us humans. Sometimes they will eat starlings or house sparrows, both of which are invasive species that harm native species like bluebirds. Bluebirds are a very helpful bird to have around because they eat a lot of garden pests and agricultural pests on our farms. Having Cooper's hawks around helps to keep starlings and house sparrows under control, moving around, and also by directly eating them, so that keeps the bluebirds happier and lets them to nest and raise their babies more successfully, which in turn helps us humans. If you really want to put your nature detective skills to the test, try to find a Cooper's hawk in your neighborhood. Sometimes they'll live in suburban towns or even in cities. You'll notice they'll be longer than a football and have that long trailing tail. They'll probably be flying pretty fast in a straight line, flapping their wings a couple of times and then gliding for a short distance, and then flapping again and gliding for a short distance. Well, thank you so much for joining me for today's Nature Mystery. If you have any questions about Cooper's hawks or other kinds of birds of prey that live in New York State, please put a comment in the comment section below the video. Share this video with your friends to put their nature detective skills to the test. And as always, like Letchworth State Park's Facebook page to stay tuned for more nature mysteries.